What's going on, guys? Kirk here from Motor Gear TV. Thank you guys for tuning in once again. Today is going to be a very special video because I'm going over the entire mod list from my 2017 BMW M2. This has been a highly requested video. I'm going to break down the build from start to finish. Let you guys know a little bit about some of the parts that I have on the car and why I chose them. This is going to be a very special one, so stay tuned. Let's get started. Alright, so going into this, I really wanted to highlight the car as best as possible. Honestly, before filming this, I didn't realize exactly how many parts I actually put on the car since I got it. Give you some backstory. This is a 2017 BMW M2. I got it completely bone stock, minus it having a BMW M Performance exhaust installed from factory. Beyond that, the car was bone stock when I got it. I think what I'm going to do, at least to kind of get things started off, is just to highlight the overall exterior of the car, move to the interior, and then we'll finish off with the engine. Now, in going into this build, for me, it was more than just building a car. I wanted something that would be able to perform well on the street and also on the track, and also be a good car for content. Now, luckily enough, the BMW M2 has a wide variety of parts that you can do to it, not only visually but performance wise, and I really believe, you know, this being kind of like my final stage or final version of the car, it really was a great expression of just me and, you know, things that I love to personally do. Now, a lot of the parts I did, you know, for styling, but a lot of them are very functional, and that's more so going to be highlighted when I go into the engine. But just to kick things off, going off from the exterior, let's start off with the front end of the car. One of the first things I wanted to do was to make it look visually appealing. Now, don't get me wrong, the BMW M2, especially the OG M2, is a beautiful car from factory, but I think some of the additions that I made enhanced the overall styling of it, made it more aggressive, and that has to do a lot with the aero parts. From the front, I did add a gloss black CS style front lip. I think that this is probably one of the best front lips you can get for the car. It's not the most aggressive lip you can get, but it's also not the most subtle. To me, the lip adds a good amount of styling, especially with the little wings at the side, the way the edges are at the front. Overall, with how aggressive the bumper was already, I think it ties in perfectly. Now, when I go through the car, you're going to notice that I have carbon fiber bits here and there, and also have gloss black bits. I didn't want to go overboard with the carbon fiber, simply being that, you know, it's very easy to get distracted with all of the carbon. For me, I think it's a good balance to have a little bit of gloss black and a little bit of carbon. Now, one of the main reasons I decided to go with a gloss black front lip is because, you know, when I decided to get the car, I wasn't sure how low the car was going to be after I lowered it. Replacing a gloss black front lip is much easier and less expensive than replacing a carbon fiber lip, and to be honest, I've had this on the car for about 2.5 years and it's held up pretty decently. I haven't scraped that much, and thankfully the car isn't that low, but I think overall it just adds a nice level of aggression. Continuing to the rest of the front bumper, I did add these carbon fiber front fangs. Now, these are little attachments that just go on top of the bumper. Now, as you guys can see, it just gives it an additional aggressive element to the front. I think it ties in very well. Other than that, I did add also some carbon fiber eyelids, as you guys can see right here. Now, the car does come from factory with a Shadowline package, and that's going to give you the gloss black front grills, gloss black side emblems, and also gloss black mirror caps and gloss black window trim. Tying into the all black theme, I decided to go another step ahead, and I got something that I think is a very subtle mod, but it does make a big difference, and that is the blacked out BMW emblems. Now, I have this on the front of the car and also the back of the car. Now, the person I got these from doesn't make them anymore, but you can pick them up from IND, no problem. Now, going down to the front of the car, as you guys can see right there, I have a strut brace from factory. Now, I just went ahead and wrapped this with gold vinyl wrap. I think it came out really nicely. I think it adds a little bit of pop on the front end of the car, and it also ties into my gold ARM intercooler. A little bit more about that later on when we go to the engine. Now, moving on to the side of the car. As you guys can see, the car is sitting pretty nice. It's currently right now on Machinell lowering springs. I think it gives the car a really nice ride height. as you guys can see. Now, I've had the lowering springs on the car for roughly about 2 years. I think they've held up pretty good. The ride is pretty nice, very close to factory, but just a little bit firmer. To me, it handles really nice on the road, and I've taken this to autocross events and on the track. No problems. If I was to go a step further, I probably would go for a set of coilovers, maybe something like a KW or a Öhlins Road and Track. But for overall, for most part, this is my daily driver. I commute this to work and on the weekends. Maybe having a full-fledged coilover setup might not be the most ideal, but I do know you can adjust the dampening of most of them to make it more driver friendly. Now, in continuing with the side of the car, probably one of my favorite mods I've done to the car so far is my BBS RIA wheels. Now, I did pick these up second hand. I did make a video about them. Overall, the profile on it is very aggressive, very flush, sitting on some Michelin Cup 2 tires. This is a 18-inch setup. A lot of you who are OG subscribers would have known that I did have another set of wheels on the car, my Vossen HF5 wheels. Now, those were finished off in a custom gold powder coat. I thought they looked really good on the car, but they were a little bit heavy. To me, the 18-inch BBS wheels are the money. They sit perfectly on the car, super light. You don't really feel them as much compared to the 19-inch setup, and honestly, this is probably one of my dream wheel setups, especially for the M2. I think it just fits the car so nice. Now, continuing to the side of the car, as I mentioned, carbon fiber bits, carbon fiber mirror caps right there. Also have a carbon fiber side wing. This is the M Performance style. Again, small carbon fiber touches without overdoing it. In addition, I also have a BMW sequential turn signal. If you guys can see, kind of goes like that. Again, small touches that make a big difference. Now, this isn't a mod, but obviously you guys know MotoGear TV, that's the channel, repping Jamaica as always. Moving on to the back of the car. I think the back of the car is the most significant, and it's for a number of reasons. Those of you who do know M2s will know that the OG M2 had two versions, a pre-facelift and a facelift. So what I went ahead and did was I upgraded my taillights to the full LED facelift versions. Now, these stand out way more and look way more unique and modern in my opinion. I did do a full breakdown of how I did the swap. It was pretty easy. Now, you do have to code these in, and also you do have to switch around the pins for it. But overall, pretty straightforward install, not too much work for it. I did go ahead and put some dark vinyl overlay. I think it ties in really nicely to the car, and overall really pleased with that swap. Continuing to the rest of the car, did add a BMW CS style spoiler. This has been on the car for almost 2 years. It's held up pretty nicely, and I think it looks fantastic. I think it's probably one of the best looking spoilers you can get for the car. Now, you do have like the PSM style, you do have wings that you can get for the car. Overall, I wanted something that was OEM plus, not too much, but still gives some additional styling, and I like the fact that you can actually see this from the rear view mirror of your car. Making our way around to the back, as I mentioned before, painted roundels. Small detail makes a big difference. Blacked out OEM M2 badges. Before, I had some chrome ones on it from factory. Stood out a little bit too much. I wanted that all black theme, so I think it ties in very nicely. And in addition to blacking out everything, the reflectors on the rear bumper of the car, I swapped these out for some Ason honeycomb reflector deletes. Very clean cut, looks very OEM plus, tying into the small details. Now, making our way to the center of the rear bumper, I added a MTC, if I'm pronouncing that right, style rear diffuser. Now, this one is in gloss black, kind of matching the front lip in gloss black as well. Again, I didn't want to overkill it with the carbon fiber. I think the gloss black adds a bit of aggression to it, pairing up with my M Performance exhaust. And I did also go ahead and add some gold striped vinyl to the fins, as you guys can see, just giving it a little bit of a pop, not too much. At least it makes it easier for you to see. And now, I know a few of you might have noticed I do have a custom nameplate, MGTV. Now, this is what I'm going to be using for the car and also future builds in the future. I think it ties in really nicely. Shout out to my alma mater, Embry Riddle. Those of you who know, you know. And to top it all off, the car has, as I mentioned, from factory, a BMW M Performance exhaust. Now this, if you're trying to buy it separately, it's not an affordable piece at all. The tips alone are about $1,000, and I think the system by itself is almost $3 grand. Now to me, it's probably one of the best sounding exhausts you can get for the OG M2. I think it sounds very deep and aggressive. The pops on it are amazing, and especially when paired up with a catless downpipe, trust me, chef's kiss. Now, by the end of this video, I'm probably going to pop up the cost of the entire build on the screen just so you guys can get a rough idea if you're going to build something like this similar. Now, I did get a lot of these parts on discount. I did get a few sponsorships, and I did get some things that I had to pay full price for. But what I'm going to use is just a rough estimate if you're going to build this out by yourself, if you didn't have sponsorships or find any deals, retail prices. But I'm also going to try and see if I can highlight what I paid in total just so you guys can see the comparison. Alright, now moving to the interior of the car. Probably one of my favorite parts of the car, to be honest. The car from factory laid out very nicely. I think it's probably one of the best BMW interiors besides the G80s that they've done. Especially for the M2, I do love the little subtle hints of the blue stitching. I think it ties in nicely, especially with the Alcantara on the side. All of this is factory, matte carbon details throughout. Now, one of the biggest mods I've done to the car on the interior side was to do a M4 seat swap, as you guys can see. Now, these seats made a world of a difference when compared to the OG comfort seats. Now, you guys can get these from factory in the M2 competition, but unfortunately the OG M2 guys, we didn't get this option. Now, for those of you who are interested in doing this, I recommend going with the M4 seats simply because you do have the little clip right here that allows it to recline to get into the back seat. On the M3s, you don't have that option. Now, this does come with the Merino leather, which is much better than the standard Dakota leather that comes in the OG M2. Roughly, you can find these online anywhere from, you know, about $1,500 to $2,500 depending on the condition. I got these for a pretty good deal. It looks great, it fits nicely, and I think it ties into the overall interior of the car. Also, to complement the blue stitching on the interior, I went ahead and got my seat belts rewebbed to a light blue color. I think it makes a nice pop, especially to the interior. You can see it from the outside of the car. It really stands out, and trust me, colored seat belts are the move. Now, moving on to the driver's side, I did go ahead and do a small update to the steering wheel. I got this wrapped in Alcantara with blue and yellow stitching. If you guys can see, I think it ties in very nicely. Also added a carbon fiber center trim right there, carbon fiber brake handle update, just to tie into the rest of the matte carbon on the interior of the car. Now, continuing with the blue theme of the car, I went ahead and added a blue start button, and also, if you guys can see right here, I added some blue custom gauges. Now, I got these from a company called Venoxy. It was a pretty time-consuming install, but definitely worth it. Compared to the stock gray gauges, I think it makes a nice pop, especially for the interior of the car. Compared to the standard gray that comes on the M2, I think it really stands out, makes a world of a difference. It's much more easier to read the gauges, whether in the daytime or the nighttime. And to me, the matching blue, I think, just ties in the interior perfectly. Only other thing I've done, which you can't really see, I did do a Bavsound speaker upgrade, and that includes the full speaker swap from all of the speakers on the doors, the shelf, on the front and the rear, and also the underseat subwoofer. Now, the Bavsound system, nothing but good things to say about it. Much more crispier, punchier, deeper bass, and well worth the money. And lastly, before I forget, I did go ahead and add these G8X style paddle shifters, again with the matching blue. Now, these are the carbon style, nice little flare. And I think this adds a more of a modern hint to the steering wheel. Now, moving on to the most important piece, the engine. Alright, y'all ready for this? Alright, there we have it in all its glory. This is my modified N55B motor. Some will say it's not the best engine for this car. I beg to differ. I think it sounds way better than the S55 motor that's in the M2 competition. Now, it doesn't make as much power, but overall a very reliable engine. You can honestly go through all of the gears and put all the power to the ground. It's very predictable, and I have seen a few of them making some big numbers. This car currently is tuned on MHD Stage 2 Plus. Before I got it tuned, the car was making roughly about 400 to the crank without the tune, with all the bolt-ons. Right now, being on Stage 2 Plus 93 octane, I would estimate it anywhere between 420 to 450 horsepower. Now I did do a variety of things to the engine to not only improve the power but also to improve the reliability of the car. To me, a lot of the mods that I've done have improved the overall driving experience, and visually it looks great. I didn't really want to go overboard with the visuals with having some things like dress up bolt kits or things like that. Everything that I put onto the car, especially for the engine, served a very good purpose, whether it be to make the car more responsive or, as I mentioned, just to tie into the overall reliability of the car. Starting off from, I guess, the most unique and the most significant piece is going to be my Turner carbon fiber engine cover. Now this completely transforms the look of the engine. A lot of times when I pull my bonnet at car shows or car meets, a lot of people are asking, you know, what type of engine is this? They're not used to seeing the engine cover looking like this. Turner did a really good job in its overall styling. It covers the valve cover only and allows you to see the intake manifold. Now for someone like me, if I was going to upgrade my intake manifold, I think this would be a perfect piece. Now that might be something to consider in the future, but for right now I think it looks very clean and very unique. Continuing with the Turner carbon, I also added a Turner Motorsport carbon fiber air intake. Very lovely, especially from the sounds, how unique it looks in the engine bay. Decided to go with matte carbon for both because in my past experiences I noticed that matte carbon holds up better under heat, especially in the engine. And to me, so far, you know, I've had this in the car almost 3 years and it's held up pretty nicely. Now in addition to that, you guys will notice some silver aluminum bits here and there. Starting off with the strut tower brace on the top. This is from Racing Dynamics. Now this overall improves the handling of the car. I do feel more connected, especially when taking tight corners. The car just feels more stable. I don't have a lot of body roll and it significantly improves the overall response. Continuing from that, I recently did a video on this as well. This is my Paradigm oil filter cap. Very useful. It looks unique, much better than the plastic stock one that came with the car. In addition to that, I also have a Musselman oil thermostat. Now this has been very great for me. Keeps the oil temps very manageable. I can run the car harder for longer, and again ties into parts that I've decided to go with to make the car more reliable. Now in addition to all these parts that you can see visually, there are a few parts hidden that you can't see. Starting off with my ARM charge pipe. Now this I had to upgrade. It's one of probably the most easiest failure points on some of these N55 engines. The stock one is prone to cracking because it's made out of plastic. This one is an all aluminum construction, super reliable, very affordable too, and was a breeze to install. Next thing, I do also have a turbo inlet pipe. Now this one is also from Turner Motorsport. A bit difficult to install, but definitely improves the responsiveness of the stock turbo. And lastly, I do have, as I mentioned before, my gold ARM front facing intercooler. Now this is probably one of the most unique looking intercoolers simply because it is finished in gold. When I first got the car, the black and gold theme was very prominent for me, so I did like that this one stood out, looked great, and it's also very reliable. And lastly, in connection to my M-Performance exhaust, as I mentioned before, I am running a VRSF catless downpipe. Now the catless downpipe is something I'm very happy with. It amplifies the sound of the M-Performance exhaust tenfold. The thing sounds like a thunderstorm when it's coming on the street. I absolutely love it. Very dramatic, especially when I have it in Sport or Sport Plus. My BMW M-Performance exhaust is controlled by valves, so I have the ability at least to turn it on and off. So not a lot of drone coming from the cabin when I have it closed, but definitely a lot of drama when I have it open. Alright, now one of the last things I wanted to highlight on the car was my MGG CSL DRL chips I added to the headlight. Very easy to install. All I had to do was take out these two modules, swap out the LED boards, and boom, here you have it. Adds a really nice aggression to the car, if you guys can see, and definitely stands out, especially against the black of the car. Looks really nice. Overall, another one of my top mods visually for the car, and I will say it is trending right now, and I did want to go ahead and put it on the car. Now I do have my stock modules that I can swap out pretty easy if I'd get bored of this, but for right now I'm loving how it looks. I added a LED turn signal in the front headlight. Now from factory, this one is halogen. I did have to get this one coded in, but I think it overall cleans up the look of the car, and especially when it's off, you don't see a giant orange bulb in the front. Small little details I think make a big difference, and overall guys, this is what you get for the final package. Now I am going to go ahead and try and put a total right here somewhere of what it would cost you to build this car, and also in addition to that, comparison of what I paid overall. Now again, these are with sponsorships, getting deals on used parts, and also purchasing some things outright. If you wanted to build something like this, here's what it would look like. Alright, and that's it. Hopefully this video isn't too long. I hope I highlighted everything on the car. Probably the only thing I didn't get to highlight was probably the brakes. Just to go through that really quickly, I have Hawk HBS 5.0 pads, StopTech stainless steel lines, and I have uprated brake fluid on the car. Overall, I think for me, this was the perfect street build that you can take to the track occasionally. It does everything that I want to do very nicely. The overall driving experience with owning an M2 is like no other. It's probably one of the best bang for your buck you can get right now. I think for those of you who are interested in looking for it in the market, right now you can get them anywhere in the low to mid $30,000 range to the mid 40,000s. And to be honest, especially with all of this aftermarket support, I think it's a very good buy. There are lots of clean examples. A lot of folks who do own the M2 do respect it and do take care of them. So that's something to take into consideration when you're looking for your car. The ownership experience has been great over the last 3 years. Modifying the car and bringing it to this level, to me, I feel like I've done so much, but there's still so much more I could do. Things like upgrading the turbo, upgrading suspension to a coilover setup, maybe even doing a color change. Those are all things I had in consideration for the car. I think right now it's at a really good level where I can not really do anything else to it and still be satisfied to where it's at right now. The car has been great, and honestly I don't really think there's much on the market in this category or this price range that can compete with it. Now, if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure you go ahead and smash the like button. If you're interested in seeing more M2 content, leave some comments down below. I'd love to hear what you guys think about the build overall. And make sure you guys are tuning in to all of the future episodes and all the future content we're coming out with, especially with my build and Mark's build. We also have some bike content in between, so you guys are definitely want to look out for that. But I think right now, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up. Stay tuned for more geared up content, and until then guys, we're gone.